Welcome to Wildspire. You get to be a fly on the wall for my intimate conversations with entrepreneurs who are changing the world. I'm your host, Stephanie Benedetto, coach, storyteller, and unmarketer at The Awakened Business, helping coaches and change-making entrepreneurs unleash their inspired message and share it with playful unmarketing. I'll ask curious questions and explore uncharted waters with my guest today. Anything can happen when we step into the unknown of infinite creativity, and that's where we're going to play. My guest today, Marlene Cameron, has a fascinating story of losing almost $1 million through a series of financial tsunamis, as she calls them, and how she came to find peace in the midst of her worst fears becoming a reality. But more than the story, she offers hope for you, for me, no matter where it is that you find yourself in life. In our conversation, we talk about imposter syndrome, dealing with risk, and finding well-being throughout it all. Marlene Cameron is a clarity catalyst who coaches women in business struggling with self-doubt and stress, who can often feel like imposters. She shows entrepreneurs and professionals how to embrace their true nature, tap into their innate wisdom, and accept their natural confidence. Her clients discover the calm clarity and deeper knowing that supports them in being more decisive, productive, and profitable. Despite her successful careers as a commercial interior designer with a six-figure business, as a management consultant and financial analyst, Marlene experienced ongoing insecurity and her own feelings of being an imposter. After years of looking for a solution, she discovered what was for her the missing link, an understanding called the three principles, which provided the foundation for unshakable poise, presence, and personal power. She now shares this understanding so that others can discover their own innate capacity for insight, resilience, and flow in their lives. Marlene joins me for a refreshingly honest and simple conversation about an understanding that has changed her life and mine. Without further ado, meet Marlene Cameron. Hi, Marlene. Welcome to Wildspire Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks, Stephanie.
So, as we were chatting about what we'd really love to explore in this conversation, you had told me a little bit about your story. And one of the most powerful discoveries that have allowed you to find within you that which is unshakable. Find a well-being that can't be touched by what happens in life, by the changes, the trials and tribulations, and the failures and mistakes and catastrophes and obstacles, and I could go on. So what would you like people to know about that journey that you've had?
Well, I think I don't know when it started, honestly, but I was always did well at whatever I pursued in terms of my education, careers. People saw me as accomplished, successful, very capable, but I really struggled to see myself that way. And so I struggled with a lot of insecurity, self-doubt, second-guessing myself. I was kind of like the classic, had all the classic traits of, somebody with imposter syndrome. And that had a big impact, not only on my professional career, but also my personal life. And I remember working with a coach fairly early on, and she sent me some information about imposter syndrome, and I thought, well, that's really interesting, But it took a while for me to kind of really understand what was going on for me. And So after my former husband and I separated, and I'd taken my coaching training, but I really didn't have the confidence to go out there and offer coaching, and so I thought, how can I support myself, financially, and so I took all of my retirement savings and regular savings and all the equity in my house, and I put it into what I thought were really great investment opportunities. And they were going to pay a monthly interest, so I could, have something to live on while I proverbially, got my act together, so to speak, and mustered up the courage and the confidence to go out and create my business. And that went on for some time. And I remember thinking at the time that, boy, I hope nothing happens, because that would be essentially like the worst thing that could ever happen, that I wouldn't have that, that financial fallback or that financial cushion. And after the downturn in the economy and some other contributing factors, indeed, all that money I had invested, I call it my financial tsunami. It just was all swept away, essentially. And but somehow I kind of struggled through. I took any opportunity to get more training, do more business development, and it wasn't until a couple of years ago I was introduced to an understanding that led me to believe that I wasn't here all on my own, that I was supported in life, that the universe had my back, so to speak, that I, could be guided, inspired, informed, by something beyond my own personal intelligence. And that brought me to a place where I really feel much more at peace, I guess, if you will, with life, and more trusting, and I guess even maybe more open to taking risks again. Because once you do something like that, and it's like, woo, better pull back and what have you. So it's really been a lovely journey to discover kind of like some, I call like these bigger aspects of life, beyond what I understood to be kind of my personal existence, if you want.
Mm. Yeah. So one of your worst fears, I don't know if it was the worst fear, was it your biggest fear? This thing that happened, this financial tsunami, or was it just one of them?
No, I think it was my biggest fear, because I had, my husband and I were separated. I hadn't worked for many years because we lived in, the United States, and, we traveled, to accommodate really his career. So I wasn't really reestablished in my career. And I remember even thinking at the time, it's like, boy, I don't even know how I would make a substantial amount of money on my own. And so that indeed was the biggest fear at the time, that something would happen to this, these savings and investments I had. And like, I would be really, really not in a good way. So I would have to say that was my biggest fear. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. The proverbial, become the bag lady type of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So what did you do to try to prevent that fear before this actually happened? Yeah, I'm wondering. So a lot of times, and maybe you didn't, maybe there was nothing that you did. I'm just wondering if it drove your behavior in some way. So like, for example, sometimes if people are afraid that they're going to lose all their money, they try to do everything they can to protect it, or they push themselves to make more, or if someone is afraid that they're going to lose their house, they might do things to make sure that they keep it. Or sometimes it's just as simple, right? I'm just worrying about it all the time. And that's how I think, like, if I keep bringing it up, then I'll be aware and alert, and I'll notice it if something's threatening that.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I would have to say it was the latter. Like, it was like my defense against this fear was worry, feeling very anxious around money, really for as long as I can remember. Even though there is no significant issues around money, I've always felt uncomfortable, that I didn't really have a grip on it, that it was, it was, and the irony is too, Stephanie, is that I have 2 degrees in finance, so that wasn't even a defense against the fear and the anxiety that I felt around money.
Wow. So it doesn't sound like it really changed your behavior at all, but what was happening was just constant anxiety around money.
Yeah. So a couple of things I would say, always trying to get the best return. So, maybe looking at investments that were rather risky, right? Always trying to, kind of capitalize. But also I became a real spender. Like it's like in my mind, I was like spending money because then I would have everything I needed when I ran out. As illogical as that may sound, I had that going on for me too.
Well, it kind of makes sense, right? And this is kind of why I was asking this question, because, what we do and the thoughts that we entertain, the ones that look real to us, we do it because it looks like that's important. Like we need to, in order for things to go well, in order to be safe, in order to be happy, in order to get whatever it is that we want. Like, it looks like that makes sense. Yes. So I can see that spending money to make sure you had all the things, because at some point it might run out, it kind of makes sense. Though we know it's not logical. If I think that it's going to go away and I have it now, of course I would spend it. Like, that's this one thing that I might do. So what was it like? Like, take me back to when this financial tsunami hit. What was that like? What happened?
Ooh, shocking to say the least. So part of the challenge was I'd taken this loan out against the value of my home. So I had income, and then part of that income went back to paying the interest on the loan. So, and so I, for months and months and months, I had to keep coming up with all of this money to pay the interest on this big loan, because, you'd think, well, just sell your house, Marlene, and pay it off. But that same year I had 4 deaths in my family, and it's just like didn't seem like I could handle anything more. So I just kept, juggling money around and borrowing money and paying it back. And I was able to kind of keep up the charade, if you will, for over a year and a half. It was, I guess I could look back and say it was actually pretty creative. and taking a lot of risk, and just doing it anyway. So I guess I could, compliment myself on my courage, because it took a lot of courage. Yeah, it was a very disarming situation.
So when you had this new understanding come that changed the way you looked at life. So the worst thing that could have happened that you had imagined happened.
Yes.
You lost the money that you had so much anxiety around, that you were so worried was going to go away, and it did.
Go figure, huh?
Yeah. And then you came across this understanding. Like, tell me about that. Like, what did you see that changed it for you?
I think a part of me has always known the universe had my back. But just in small ways, right? I decided to walk the Camino. It's a 800 kilometers or 500-mile walk across Spain, and I went by myself. And I went actually with a knee injury and was in a lot of pain. But I remember thinking that, all of these pilgrims have walked that path for centuries, and there's, there's an energy there that would support me, in kind of my physical distress. And so I think I had a little inkling of that. But I didn't see it kind of beyond that, being more of even more comprehensive, that it would support me even when I made decisions that had, turned out to be quite catastrophic. And then I began to notice just little things that would, opportunities that would come up, or people I would meet, or when things seemed to be their darkest, I'd get a nice contract, and it's like, oh, so I am being supported. I am being nurtured, if you will, or often even guided, into next steps. And the more I surrendered to that understanding that I didn't have to figure out everything myself, that there was, a bigger intelligence, if you want to call it, behind life, my life, all life, that I just started to settle down and be more at peace with what was, or, what is, and didn't use my personal mind to kind of run ahead and make up all of these, these scenarios, these, the worst case scenarios. I kind of stopped using my thinking for that, and could more and more be kind of in the present moment, and feeling super grateful for what I do have. And
So when you look back at what happened, because there was a period of time, right, between this financial tsunami and then coming across this shift, this change, the understanding called the three principles. There was a period of time, right, that elapsed before that happened.
Yeah.
So does it look different to you now when you look back on it? Can you see those things at play, the guidance? And
it was probably always there. I just wasn't conscious of it.
Yeah.
Because if I look back now, it's like, oh, isn't that interesting? That happened. Or isn't that interesting that I had that conversation with that person? And it was, we can talk about synchronicities or whatever. And I can see, in retrospect, that it's like, oh, that's what was going on all that time. But because I wasn't aware of it or conscious of it, I was still in a lot of worry, even though there was already evidence there that, something else was happening.
Can you give me an example of that, of like how you can see now, looking back, you were supported and cared for, but even though you didn't realize it?
Yeah. So when I had this, there was, I had like 3 little financial tsunamis in a row, if you will. So the big one, and then I had another one. And it was like within about 2 weeks after that, I learned about an opportunity to take like a business development program that was completely free. And it was like a 12-week program or something. We went every week and had all this great, guidance and information. And that it's like, oh, isn't that nice that because it not only did 2 things, it helped me, to refocus on what's possible, on the future. I became part of a group, so I didn't feel, like I didn't belong anywhere. and and I started to reestablish, my kind of my trust that I can create something in my life.
Hmm. Wow, and that happened, it came along right away, pretty much just a couple weeks
Yeah.
right after.
Yeah. Hmm.
What was it that made you say yes to that, Marlene? Do you remember?
I think it was, I really like to feel like I belong. And after that happened to me, I felt a little bit isolated and alone because, you know, all of my friends and colleagues, they have, they're financially, you know, fine. And now I'm not. And so I felt like I needed to, to be part of something that I could kind of belong with. And, in this case, it was other women who were developing their businesses. And I thought that would be a good group of people to hang out with.
Hmm. And was it? Did it turn out to be the group?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it was good. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been kind of wondering how it is that, so much of the message that we get, and for most of my life, I thought this was true about me, was that I was somehow broken or dysfunctional,
Mm.
that there was something wrong with me. I had people tell me in my life, and I have been generally very well liked, have had many things go well, not all things. And people would tell me every once in a while, Stephanie, you've got a lot of potential.
Mm.
Kind of like you're a fixer-upper. But you got some issues, like you've got some issues from the past, dysfunctions that you need to work out. And once you get those nailed, oh, you're golden because you've got good bones. There's good bones on you, Stephanie, And I think I really believed that. I know that I believed that in my marriage for so long. I thought, oh, I just have issues because of my parents, because of the way I was raised. And I have to deal with my issues. And once I deal with my issues, I'll be okay.
Mm.
And I know I talk to a lot of people who look at themselves that way. Like, I've got a lot of wounds that need healing. I've got holes in me, holes in my heart that need filling. And one of the things that, and I can't remember exactly when I saw it because it wasn't like a lightning bolt from the sky. But when I started to see, and I don't remember if it was in me or in others, but I think I noticed it more in others when I started to see the perfection of people.
Mm.
And how well made they are. Like, no matter what's going, quote unquote, wrong in their mental life, in their body, in their health, in their relationship space, in their careers,
Mm-hmm.
how brilliant that thing that animates them is.
Yeah.
And it's something in the three principles community. We talk about it as well-being.
Yeah.
And it's so different to go from thinking I'm broke and there's something wrong with me to, oh no, my natural state is well-being. My natural state is health. And there is only a misunderstanding that there's something wrong with me and there's something broken. And I think it might have just been as simple as hearing that and something struck my soul and said, that feels true. I don't look at a baby and think they're broken because, they're not walking yet or they're not talking fast enough or, I don't have an expectation that they should be something other than what they are. Mm. And I'm wondering for you, Like, what do you see about that, about your own well-being and the well-being that we are?
I really resonate with what you're saying because I too felt that something was wrong, in spite of my accomplishments, in spite of all my success. And I remember asking people like, what's wrong with me? and one of the things I came to understand what there's nothing wrong save for my thinking, save for all of my ways I discounted myself or diminished my accomplishments or put myself down or, and consequently did the same thing to other people. And when I understood that that's where my experience was coming from within me and these self-depreciating thoughts and, the never enough, the not good enough, that was such a huge awakening. It's like, wow, like I'm living in the experience of my own thinking about myself and the world and other people. And that was a big eye-opener for me because I just assumed I was responding to external events or past events or what people did or didn't do or what I did or didn't do. And I didn't ever see that connection to my own experience.
Mm. Yeah, what I love about what you said is that there was nothing wrong other than the wrong that you were thinking about whatever you were seeing or whatever you thought you were seeing in the world,
Right.
That was the wrong. The wrong was, and not that it was wrong for you to think it, but that you were having wrongness thinking, right? Like, this isn't right. I'm not right. There's something broken here.
Yeah.
There's something broken there. This isn't working.
Yeah.
It's such a clarifying and simple thing.
Yeah.
To just be with what is. Like if we had no judgment whatsoever about the goodness or badness or preference for what's happening, there's just simply this experience. There's just simply what's happening.
Yeah.
But we also have this capacity as human beings to think about it.
Our creative thinking that can be terrorize ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like what if money, it was really just playing the game of money. You were playing a game with money and you rolled the die and you got a bad roll and you got a few bad rolls in a row.
Yeah.
If we truly thought of it as a game, it'd be like, okay, well, I just roll again.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no big deal. But then it's what happened. What happens so often is we make something up about what that means.
Yeah.
Right? About us. And then we start seeing the world that way. We start seeing ourselves that way and creating it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This, I call it identifying with my thoughts and my thinking. So I took on the identity of feeling like an imposter, and I would even give talks on imposter syndrome, and that. So it was like a self-defining idea that was actually just all made up. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you saw that was made up? When you really saw it? Do you remember when it happened?
I think it was, I'd seen a title of a book or something. It was like, how come nobody ever told us this? And it's like, it was like, you're right. Nobody told me that I'm thinking these thoughts, identifying these thoughts, having experience in these thoughts. And I think that's real. Yeah.
So there was nothing wrong with you. You just thought there was something wrong with you.
Exactly. That's a big relief right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the story that I've heard about Sydney Banks' first big insight around this, that someone said to him kind of casually, like, oh, I'm so insecure. I'm insecure in my marriage. I feel so insecure. He said, Sid, you're not insecure. You just think you are.
Yeah.
And he went, what? I mean, it's an offhand comment, but what he heard in that was, no, you think you are. That's not you.
Yeah.
You think you're insecure. You think you're insecurity.
Yeah.
It's such a profound thing to actually see that.
It is. It is. That was huge for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I wonder what it is that allows us to be willing to see that, to step back just a little bit and notice how we are experiencing what we are thinking right now. Now you have done some things, and I know you have a background in energy therapies, energy psychology kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think about this because I've done this exercise before. It's like, and I did this in meditation. Sam Harris's meditations, that he has a waking up app. I did this for over a year, I think. And one of the exercises was to bring up an irritating thought and to just experience it and see what happens. So you bring up an irritating thought without thinking it, without doing anything with it, just being with it, like bring it up.
Yep. Yep.
And it was astounding to watch it just go.
Yeah.
Like, unless I actually worked to sustain it by either trying to grab onto it to perpetuate it or push it away, which also perpetuates it, it was like I could feel it. I could feel the irritation. I could feel my body get tense and clench. But if I didn't do anything with it, if I was just with it and I kept being with it, it would just move.
Yep.
Have you had experiences like that with thought, or maybe not in meditation, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I have. I've been actually playing with that lately, and because once in a while I go into a lot of fear about money. Still, because when I forget, right, then I'm it's all going to work out. And so one day I thought, I'm just going to be with this and just be curious about it and see where it goes and what, where it moves or what happens. And it was really just moments, and it just kind of like moved off. I thought, like, wow, it just moved off.
It is a huge shift from, oh my God, there's this thought. It's scary. I need to get rid of it.
Yeah. Huge. Yeah. I need to do something about it, use a technique or a process or do steps or, like all the doing around managing simply an emotional response to a thought we're having in the moment.
Hell, like actually that's how it's supposed to work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Seeing thought as a gift.
Yeah.
This creative capacity to have an experience of reality, and not only have an experience of reality, but know that we are. Because if we couldn't know that we were, we would just be continuously lost in it.
Yeah.
But there's also this capacity to recognize I'm aware, I am thinking,
yeah,
I am having this experience, which if I understand that that's how it's supposed to work, that thought is this creative energy that moves through me, and it does move. It's an energy. It's like, and sometimes it seems to stay for a while, and sometimes it goes very quickly, but it always moves.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't mean anything about what's happening. That's the other piece. What do you see about that?
Yeah, it's such an interesting concept because I see thought as like it's sort of like a moving buffet, right? And, and then once in a while we kind of grab onto one and, be with it and what have you. But the fact that the thought has very little to do with what's going on in the outside world, I find that completely fascinating, right? Because you and I could be in exactly the same situation and I went like, and you're going like, right? It's like we're, theoretically, we're not experiencing the thing in the same way because the experience doesn't come from out there. It comes from in there. So yeah, I just find that fascinating. But and for so long, I've been led to believe that it's like, it's the out there stuff that's causing me to feel the way I do. Yeah. Yeah, I find that fascinating because it happens so instantaneous. It sure looks like it's, it's responsible for my emotional response or whatever. Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating how that works.
It really is. And I think it only requires just a little bit of curiosity and noticing to start to catch this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it sounds like, oh, yeah. But like, it wasn't until I started to see it in action that I started to actually get it.
Yeah.
So I could watch myself. And I see it now on a regular basis because I'm a human and I might wake up in a bad mood. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'll say it's because, I got this email.
Mm-hmm.
But then I will watch my mind in this funk go, yeah, it's the email and it's my partner because he's doing that. And it's my cat because they're not doing that. And it's this. And it's looking for the cause and it's attributing the cause to everything on the outside that I can see.
Right. Yeah.
But I go, wait a minute. What is it that creates my experience? Because I could have those same things happen, an email, my partner doing this thing, my cat misbehaving, and be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's like a sunny day or a cloudy day. It's a cloudy day and therefore I feel bad. I'm like, well, there are cloudy days when I feel amazing. It can't be the cloudy day. And then to just notice, it's not because of this and this and this. I'm feeling thought.
Yeah.
I'm feeling the energy of thought. And right now it feels like funk. I don't have to feel that. And really, it's okay that I do. And I do. It's like the minute I just am with it, it becomes a meditation. It's not a meditation, but all of a sudden it becomes that. And I'm like, this will move too. This too shall pass, as they say. Well, there's something very peaceful about that, something very reassuring about it.
Yeah. When I'm tempted to assign responsibility, I can kind of catch myself in the act now. It's like, there you go. You're wanting to, make it about that or something. And it's like, yeah.
So what is your relationship with money like now?
I'm surprisingly what I call blasé. And what I mean by that is, when I look into the world and they talk about, how much money you need to retire and, you need to have all this plan and everything sorted out. And it's like, I don't have it all sorted out. I don't have it all planned. And almost feeling like maybe I should be worrying, maybe I should be way more concerned than I am. So it's, and when I go into thinking about it, I can certainly feel that discomfort and that fear. But for the most part, it's like, my plan is to have faith. and to do what I feel guided to do that would, support me in having, um, having that sense of abundance, however that shows up in my life.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What are you being moved or guided to do these days? Like, what is happening inside of you? And it might have to do with money or otherwise. I'm just curious. Like, what are you noticing?
Well, um, I have a healthier relationship with money, I would say, being more cognizant, more mindful of, where I invest or spend. Um, and sometimes, interestingly, Stephanie, it's almost like it's it's like um, it's like when you put your foot on the brake. It's like, oh, I should sign up for that program. It's like, oh no, maybe not. It's like maybe you don't need another program. Maybe you don't need another course. Maybe you don't need, right. So in a way, it's like a governor, if you will. But I'm also noticing that um, I've got some ideas for my business on how I want to, work with clients and and feeling, um, and also feeling more confident that I get to do it the way I want to do it. Right. Like I love doing, like a real deep dive with a client, like one-on-one for 3 days, like just, yeah, all in and having that experience of, introducing my clients to these concepts we're talking about today and have them be able to experience it for themselves, what it feels like to be in that place of well-being and feeling that peacefulness and knowing that that's their true essence. That's their home.
Hmm. Would you tell me about that, Marlene? Like, I want to hear you. Like, I just pretend if you want that we're about to go into this deep dive and I have no idea about, I'm coming from this belief that I'm broken, that I somehow need to be fixed. And oh, good, Marlene's going to fix me. Thank God. I found her. I finally found her. She's going to do it. Like, what would you tell me? Help me to see that.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, Stephanie, is something that I think individuals who come to coaching do experience. It's like, maybe this won't work for me, or maybe I don't have what it takes, or maybe, maybe all of that kind of stuff. And so what I would start with is a reassurance that this is all about awakening something in you that already exists. You've already got it. And it's about reintroducing you to that part of you, to kind of moving aside some of the thinking or the ideas that, could get in the way of you having that experience. And just kind of showing you how, one of the things I love about the three principles is this idea that we have this capacity for this unshakable poise, right? That we don't need to be rattled by life, that we have this capacity for this very compelling presence, that we really connect with people. They feel heard, they feel seen. And we have this capacity for, I call this immense personal power that comes from, the intelligence and the energy and the power behind all life. And so it's helping, somebody like yourself understand that you're kind of more than this, right? Mm-hmm. there's and not only that you're more than maybe your conception or your ideas about yourself, but I also love the idea that if you think about a prism, for example, so they usually use like a triangle shaped crystal, And so they've got this pure white light, coming into one side of the crystal, and then it refracts off. And as it refracts out, it kind of opens up into this whole rainbow of colors. And so this pure source of light is like, you are now one of those special colored energy beams that come out the other side of the prism. And so you have your own genius, your own gifts, your own passions, whatever way that you're meant to be in the world is all part of the plan, and helping people understand like the real value that they have and the real gifts that they can bring, and more importantly is just shining, of your true fullest self. That's really all it takes, is that you shine as your true self, because the rest is all going to be taken care of.
The feeling I have as you talk about that, Marlene, it's really beautiful, is just knowing myself. I almost like knowing myself as an expression of that, a unique and individual expression of that pure white light that is everything, that is all. And it's so reassuring and resonates as, oh yeah, that's right, I just forgot.
Yeah.
There's something that I have been seeing the last couple months, and it's a really big one for me. And I'm still sitting with it because the Stephanie personality isn't going easy with this one. And it is the difference between truth and belief. This is, you are, I am, and believing that I am, and believing that we are, and believing, like I lived, and I was really pretty okay in believing things that seemed to be useful, because I didn't think there was anything that was really true. But that's not the experience I had, because I can remember from a very small child touching that truth, which feels like infinite presence, peace, love. And it has nothing to do with my external surroundings, because I'm not even thinking about them. It's more within, beyond, before. And we all have that experience. And it's been challenging for me with my mind to acknowledge it. It's been challenging for me with my mind to say, no, this isn't something that you believe, Stephanie, Marlene, whomever. This is something that is, and you feel it, and you know it with an inner knowing. You experience it, whether you believe it or not. It's there. And like the beautiful thing is that there's always more to experience of it. There's a deeper experience that's available. I heard it expressed recently as, and it's so true. And I hear myself say this in some moments. I actually hear myself say this. Everything we're looking for is right here. In this moment, in this quiet mind, in this space, without thought, before thought. Doesn't mean it has to be empty of thought, but it's in that space, right?
Yeah.
And there's no chasing that needs to happen. There's no need that is unfulfilled in this moment, like in that place.
Yeah. it's like the prelude to what we actually see or hear, when we're in that place of gratitude or awe or wonder or feeling very kind of at peace. And it's like then everything shows up. It's just amazingly marvelous and beautiful. Regardless, right? You could be on the mountain, you could be in the ocean, you could be in the desert, and you could have exactly the same experience, even if you prefer mountains. Yeah, because you just see it for what it is, that just incredible beauty and kind of like the peacefulness that comes with that, just that quiet joy.
And is that, Marlene, is that the well-being that you've found, that you've noticed is there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm starting, for me, the way it started to show up was I started seeing people differently. And it's like, oh, that person's really kind of cool. And, they're so unique and they're different. And before I was more tempted to be kind of assessing or comparing or analyzing or, judging in some way. Now it's almost like you take that, that thinking away, and you just kind of get to see the uniqueness and the kind of I guess the amazingness of people and the world in general. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Marlene, for sharing your experience of that. I know that, and I can imagine walking that path of having your worst fear realized must have been at moments quite terrifying.
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
And yet to hear you having come through it. Okay, so I got to ask you, are you sorry it happened?
I fully realized that was the catalyst, if you will. It's like having the rug kind of pulled out from underneath you because you were going down a path that was not very beneficial. And I actually had a friend say this to me, that she said, "Really, that's the best thing that ever happened to you." And it was like, whoa. But she saw the changes over time that came from that experience and what I've learned and what I've come to understand in the meantime. So, I mean, part of me would like to have all that money back for sure, but I also know that I'm okay.
Yeah. And it was not a trick question. I actually just really wanted to hear how you answered it. And I can imagine that it's sort of like, well, I wish it had gone differently because there's a lot. And I certainly, me personally, I don't think that you had to go through that in order to learn the lessons. You had to learn your lesson the hard way. You needed tsunami in order to bring you to your knees. Like, I don't think that there's a rule about it.
No.
But it does sound like there were many gifts that you discovered in the process, but those gifts were always there. You didn't need the disaster for that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the really cool thing to me about, or one of the many cool things about this is that, I already have well-being. And at any moment, I can notice it. I'm already where I want to be. I already have the things that I really want. Like what I'm looking for is right here. And at any moment I can notice it. And I might not. It might take me many more moments, but there's nowhere to go and there's nothing that has to happen, be it something I have to accomplish, achieve, or a destination I have to reach, or something horrible that has to happen to bring me to my knees so I'm quiet enough to actually listen. It can take that, but it doesn't have to. It's kinder than that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So what message would you most love to give, Marlene, to someone who finds themselves living with that fear and insecurity the way that you were? What would you like them to know?
Whew. One of the things I found really reassuring, I actually studied the science of mind for a few years. And mind, some people call mind source or creator or God or, divine. And when I came to understand that infinite intelligent energy behind life, that's behind all creation, actually knows how to operate things. And so I found that really reassuring. It's like, if I don't know, or you don't know how things, what to do or how things should be, or it's like, if you can just even surrender just a teeny tiny bit to that idea that there's something beyond you that's guiding you, supporting you, it's got your back. Many people come to a place that they actually feel much safer. If you can even just entertain that just a little bit, that there's something behind you that's supporting you. I personally found that really helpful.
Beautiful. And just entertaining it. Just consider, just what if.
Yeah.
And notice what happens. I like that. It seems pretty simple. Cool. So Marlene, if people would like to find you and learn more about you, where can they go?
They can go to my website. It's simply marlenecameron.com. And I actually have a gift for the listeners. They can go and download it's a little 10-page ebook in large print. It's called The 7 Secrets to Unshakable Calm, Clarity, and Confidence.
Cool. 7 secrets. I will post a link with that along with the blog post and YouTube video as well. Awesome. Thank you so much, Marlene. This has been a great pleasure. Thanks so much for joining me for today's Wildspire conversation. If you'd like to receive a weekly Wildspire email from me filled with inspiring stories on marketing experiments, tips for playing your way to impact and income without the hustle and hype, insights from my spiritual business journey, and more, go to theawakenedbusiness.com/Wildspire. Until next time, may you know yourself as the gorgeous wild creation you are.